Let's talk about your sensitive areas. Where are they? This is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms, and no, I'm not talking about those sensitive areas. In this podcast, I want to talk about sensitive or restricted areas where firearms are not allowed. Obviously, for some of these, you're going to want to check your own state laws because they do vary. I don't know if it's still true, but for a while in New York, you could have a gun on you at a bar. In North Carolina, where I am, firearms in bars are no-nos. You'll get in a lot of trouble if they catch you with one. So where alcohol consumption is taking place, no firearms here. But it may vary, with your state. So by all means, check the laws, check with an attorney if you need to. So having done that disclaimer, let's move forward. So one of the biggest issues that cropped up was for a while in New York and, in New Jersey, as a matter of fact, they tried declaring the entire state essentially as a sensitive place or a sensitive area, making it virtually impossible for law-abiding citizens to carry their firearms in public. And, that's a problem. And there are lots of conundrums with this. In fact, in the Supreme Court cases, New York State Pistol and Rifle Club v. Bruin, Heller v. District of Columbia, the Supreme Court justices were really kind of, I wouldn't even say split. They weren't even sure necessarily how to define a sensitive place beyond some common sense areas. So, things like on Capitol grounds is still a sensitive area. Schools, government buildings, polling places, courthouses. And then again, each state varies with other places. So in North Carolina, for example, you're not supposed to have a gun at the state fair. You can't bring a gun to a riot. You can't bring a gun to a parade. And you're going to go, well, I can do what I want. Well, yeah, you can, but if you get caught and you're in violation of the law, you have a problem. Now, one of the big issues with the justices was in their decision and in their positions. They were saying, yes, it's okay to have a sensitive or a gun-free zone, but it has to be a defined area. And they did point out that there were some issues. So, for example, in New York, you can't have a firearm, in the subways, which is cool. I mean, you want to be safe on the subway. On the other hand, they did bring up, and it might have been Justice Alito, I'm not 100% certain, but who said, well, let's say you take the subway home, and then you have to walk through a dangerous neighborhood. Well, how do you protect yourself? On the one hand, the subway is, a restricted or sensitive area for firearms, but then you've got to, potentially put yourself at risk walking from the subway station to your home. And the best answer they could come up with is there wasn't any single right answer, and that needed to be defined. So, what am I getting to? Well, let's talk about Times Square. So, New York responded with, all right, fine, we're not going to make the entire state a restricted area, but we will turn around and we'll make some areas that kind of make sense. So, Times Square became a sensitive area. And, throughout that area, I don't remember exactly how many blocks or how many city blocks it encompasses. They put up signs and, said, no guns or gun-free zone. And, there's tens of thousands of people every day going through there. And the statement they made was that putting up the signs will work. We promise. Okay, I don't know how you're actually going to do that. I mean, you could have a law-abiding criminal. Wait a minute. That's an oxymoron. I wouldn't bring a gun to Times Square because it says I can't, and I am a law-abiding citizen. But everyone knows criminals will follow those signs too. No. Well, if they followed the sign, they're no longer a criminal, right? Okay, so where does that leave us in, one of the things they're saying when they put up those signs is placing signs is a sure way to show that you're serious about no guns. So, keeping in mind that as law-abiding citizens, which we are, I like to think I am. I may speed from time to time. Well, I speed a lot. But ignoring that aspect, if it says no guns, I don't bring a gun. If it's within their legal right to restrict guns, I obey the law. How are you going to get criminals to do it? So now we have an area where it says no guns. And the criminal has a gun. Well, it doesn't seem really fair if he's robbing me. But I guess, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And so when we start looking at what are the effects of this thing, their immediate claim in New York City was that felonies dropped from 1 every 2 days in the Times Square area to 1 every 3 days. So you're looking at, 50% reduction in felonies being committed in that area. What they neglected to tell you was that in that same time when they put up the signs, they had originally 65 police officers on duty in that area. When they put the signs up, they went to 137 police officers. So it kind of makes you wonder, did the signs really work? Or did doubling the number of police officers, meaning increasing the presence of law enforcement officers, did that work? Or did the signs work? Well, I'm willing to bet it wasn't the signs. They kind of look cool up on the signposts or lampposts, but I'm willing to bet they didn't do anything other than make people that don't carry guns and are law-abiding feel comfortable knowing that when they go into Times Square, they're going to be safe because nobody's allowed to have a gun. Somehow I think there's a flaw in that logic. That could just be me and my cynical attitude. And a point of fact, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably noticed that I put a whole new episode thing called, I think, Ludicrous Laws, Lawmakers, and Loonies. We have tons of laws that impact law-abiding citizens in the mistaken belief that it will curb crime. Well, Times Square, I think you shouldn't have guns. I'm pretty sure you shouldn't take a gun to a riot. I'm pretty sure if you've been drinking, you shouldn't be carrying a gun. Unless you're in New York, I guess it might still be legal there. North Carolina, no. And, North Carolina, we completely ruined parades. You can't take out your gun and start firing into the air to support the parade going by. If you're going to make laws, they need to be enforceable, and they need to impact the population that you're trying to target. Not the people that wouldn't break the law to begin with. So in this case, this made my ludicrous laws because they were positive putting the signs up would work. Plain and simple, stupid law in general. And what did New York and New Jersey think they were going to accomplish by declaring those entire states, or most of the states, sensitive areas? It's going to be challenged, and it was. And in fact, the stuff I've managed to pick up in my research is there's going to be more lawsuits about this. Where did it start? Well, Heller versus District of Columbia, your right to have a gun. District of Columbia didn't win, but they did make smaller restricted areas. And I think if we're being reasonable and rational about things, everything will be fine. Now, does it impact the criminals? No. I cannot imagine a criminal who's got a gun going to Times Square and going, oh, hey, look at that sign up there. I better not go in here because it's wrong. And then, they got to wonder and go, well, how am I going to rob somebody if I don't have a gun? Well, maybe I should go somewhere else and commit a crime. Somehow I doubt that's going to happen. But that's just me. So, as always, I'm looking forward to comments, criticism, questions. And, I will respond as I get them. In fact, even if you have ideas for podcasts, I'd love to hear them. My list is pretty extensive, and I'm always happy to add more. Now, continuing with this, you can contact me at info@quarterhorsearms.com. You can call or text 919-808-6480. And you can check out our website at quarterhorsearms.com. And I'm Alan with Quarter Horse Arms in Snow Camp, North Carolina. You folks be safe out there.